I don't doubt the aspirations of all parents in relation to their children. But I mean all parents. What we've been able to do is to make sure we release the funding to ensure that our state secondary schools have the teachers they need. And there's no point the party opposite pretending that they're interested in state education when they left them without the teaching they needed.
Dr. Richard Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You've probably never seen anything like this before. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, was openly called a liar and left utterly embarrassed in Parliament. It was a moment that MPs could never have imagined, something so outrageous that even they were stunned. Starmer made a claim so blatantly false that the entire room erupted. MPs couldn't hold back their reactions, throwing some of the harshest comments he's ever received. The Speaker was forced to step in, while Starmer himself looked visibly nervous, unsure of what might happen next. But what exactly did he say that made him seem so confident in a lie? In this video, we'll break down the entire story. Sometimes, politicians tell lies so audacious that they leave people completely speechless. That's exactly what happened in the British Parliament when the debate turned to Starmer's controversial policy, imposing an extra tax on private school fees.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. St Hilda's Girls' School looks set to join Emmanuel Jewish Prep as the second school in Bushey alone forced to close because of Labour's VAT hike. This is a double hit to aspiration. First, the parents, many of whom not wealthy, who have described the significant sacrifices they have made to send their children to these schools. And secondly, to the excellent local state schools, including the one that I attended, which simply do not have the places, meaning this policy won't even save money. So may I therefore urge the Prime Minister, even at this late stage, to look again at the failures in this policy.
Before Keir Starmer even stepped up to make his statement at PMQs, a private school in his own constituency had already announced it was shutting down, and it was directly blaming Labour's VAT policy. The village school for girls in Camden, which falls within Starmer's Holborn and St Pancras constituency, made it clear Labour's VAT tax and national insurance increases had made their business unsustainable. The school's administration didn't mince words, pointing the finger squarely at Labour's reckless taxation. That made it impossible for Starmer to brush this off as just speculation. And it's not just this one school. So far, 12 private schools have already shut down, explicitly linking their closures to Labour's VAT policy. Reports show that at least 77 independent schools in England have closed since Labour first floated the tax, and many more are expected to follow. The pattern is undeniable. Small and mid-sized independent schools, especially those outside London and the South East, are collapsing under the weight of Labour's tax grab. Parents can't afford the sudden price hikes. Student numbers are plummeting. Schools are shutting their doors. So where do those displaced students go? Straight into the already overstretched state school system, which simply doesn't have the capacity to absorb them. When Labour first introduced the VAT policy, they claimed it would raise £1.8 billion to fund education, money that Starmer promised would be used to hire more teachers and improve state schools. On paper, that sounded great. In reality, by forcing tens of thousands of students out of private education, Labour's plan is actually making the problem worse, not better. State schools are already overcrowded, teachers are already stretched thin, and now, thanks to Starmer's policy, even more students are being crammed into a system that's barely functioning as it is. The result? More competition for places in top-performing state schools, parents who saved for private education now scrambling for limited spots in good state schools. Bigger class sizes, fewer resources, and even greater inequality. Starmer insists this policy is about helping working-class families, but in reality, it's dragging state schools down even further. Meanwhile, with private schools closing, thousands of teachers are losing their jobs, and state schools won't be able to hire them fast enough to cope with the flood of new students. And here's the kicker. Starmer never had to deal with any of this himself. When questioned about his own school background, he admitted he went to a grammar school in Surrey. And guess what? That school became private while he was attending it. And when confronted with this fact, his response? He said he didn't think he even appreciated it. Starmer's hypocrisy on this issue couldn't be clearer. He benefited from an elite education while pushing policies that are now shutting schools and forcing thousands of students into an already crumbling system. And that's the reality Labour doesn't want to talk about.
I was a scholarship boy at my school and very proud of it. And I have to ask, what kind of a politician is it that sets out to make it more difficult for schools to offer exactly the kind of scholarships and bursaries that gave him such a crucial leg up in life? And the answer, of course, is Keir Starmer and the opportunity-destroying, aspiration-hating Labour Party. Read about it in my column in the Daily Mail.
The man who now argues that private education is an unfair privilege actually went to a private school himself. Yet, he wants to stop other families from making the same choice. That's classic elitist hypocrisy. He climbed the ladder, then pulled it up behind him. Meanwhile, elite schools like Eton, Harrow and Westminster will be just fine. The real victims of Labour's tax policy aren't the ultra-rich. They're middle-class parents who work hard and make sacrifices to send their kids to small independent schools, only to be punished by Starmer's flawed plan.
The Prime Minister's decision to impose VAT on independent schools strips hard-working families of the choice for what is best for their children, while risking job losses for teachers, increasing class sizes and squeezing state school resources to their absolute limit. With these impending threats, what actions is the Prime Minister taking to mitigate these effects if he is not undertaking an impact assessment to understand them?
Look, I do understand that many parents across the country save hard to be able to send their children to private school because they have aspiration for their children. So does every parent who sends their children to a state school. And the problem we have is we don't have enough teachers in key subjects in our state secondary school. Now, the party opposite may be prepared to tolerate that. I'm not. And that's why we've made this change to fund 6,500 teachers.
Before we move on, we'd love to know, are you enjoying the video? If you are, don't forget to hit like, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive updates on the major shifts in British politics. Alright, let's dive back in. Labour's tax on private schools isn't just unpopular, it might be illegal. The Independent Schools Council has taken the issue to the High Court, arguing that the policy violates the rights of children and parents by disrupting their education. Meanwhile, discontent is growing within Labour itself. Even Labour MP Hook has voiced concerns, warning that the policy is too blunt and may need to be reversed. She suggested that smaller schools should be exempt, recognising the damage already being done. Labour may have backed itself into a corner. If the legal challenge against the VAT policy succeeds, Starmer will be forced into an embarrassing U-turn. If he refuses, Labour could find itself responsible for one of the biggest education crises in modern British history. And then, the unexpected happened. After the MP publicly urged Starmer to reconsider the tax, everyone knew she had a point. The VAT policy was clearly having a disastrous impact on education. Many expected Starmer to sidestep the issue or promise to review it, but instead he took an entirely different approach, one that left people wondering if he had just made a politically self-destructive move.
I don't doubt the aspirations of all parents in relation to their children. But I mean all parents. What we've been able to do is to make sure we release the funding to ensure that our state secondary schools have the teachers they need. And there's no point the party opposite pretending that they're interested in state education when they left them without the teaching they needed.
Dr. Blair, Jed Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Keir Starmer faced a tough moment in Parliament as his own policies seemed to backfire on him. His confident dismissal of concerns was met with open resistance from Conservative MPs, who were no longer willing to sit quietly. Starmer insisted, without presenting any evidence, that his controversial VAT policy wasn't responsible for private school closures. But reality had already painted a different picture. That's when Victoria Atkins, a Tory frontbencher, couldn't hold back any longer. She called out Starmer's claim directly, shouting across the chamber. "That is a lie!" The House erupted in response. However, Atkins was quickly forced to withdraw her statement. Parliamentary rules don't allow MPs to accuse each other of lying, no matter how strongly they feel about it. Still, she had only voiced what many were already thinking.
Hold on. Shh, there is no punchline. I presume something was said that shouldn't have been said. I'm sure the member would like to withdraw what was said, if they've anything about them. Withdrawn. There we are. Let's carry on. Dr. Maria Timball. Thank you.
Keir Starmer faced a tough moment in Parliament when he tried to downplay the impact of his tax policies on schools. His claims that schools would adapt were met with strong pushback, as the reality on the ground told a different story. This wasn't just a typical political debate, it was a serious challenge to his credibility. Live on national television, Starmer was confronted with the consequences of his own policies. Schools are closing, parents are struggling with rising costs, and students are being forced out of classrooms. Yet, he continues to insist that nothing is wrong. His refusal to acknowledge these issues raises concerns about his leadership. Britain needs solutions, not political posturing. If Starmer doesn't recognise the gravity of this education crisis soon, it could come to define his legacy. Keir Starmer's downfall might be coming faster than he realises. If there's one thing the British public dislikes more than incompetence, it's dishonesty. And Starmer has just been caught lying to the entire nation, with devastating consequences for thousands of families. What do you think? Does Starmer still have the moral right to remain Prime Minister? Is he damaging the reputation of Britain's leadership and betraying the oath he took? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Many believe he's making decisions that go against the interests of the British people while claiming they're for the greater good. Do you agree? If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for updates on British politics and how it's shaping the country. Stay tuned for the next video.